But the
I'm glad you said
overturn
that,
of what? Go ahead.
because then that also brings up, I hadn't thought about it before, but it also then brings up is, if we do have more dads, staying at home and with the babies and all of this sort of a stuff, there's a new, and this is kind of the unspoken, there's also a new, I guess, a requirement added
Mm-hmm.
onto men and what they're supposed to be in their capacities.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are the one that's meant to stay home, if you are going to be with the babies, and now we get pregnant, and again, finances maybe aren't ready, or just the stress of it, timing of it, whatever's going on. But then now he's got to take that responsibility, right? So we've already
Mm-hmm.
got kids. There's another one added to it. And so it literally affects everybody um, on a very raw level. And so wouldn't he really get to say something? Again, these are agreements in everybody's relationships, but wouldn't, the man get to have a voice, especially in those situations? If he is the one really getting to having to be hands on, can he emotionally handle it? Can
Mm-hmm.
he deal with those demands? Those are different demands than not that are different than what most men honestly are built for in that way. And
Right.
so it's an adjustment all the way around.
Right.
I don't think that part
It
is getting
is.
talked about enough, of that, of like, here, like, for the women, bless them. I was absolutely in that situation where I don't necessarily want to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
My husband,
Yeah.
on the other hand, absolutely wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. He let me know multiple times. And so, yes, for me, in that type of a situation, I feel he would have a bigger say or way, whether or not that's right. Like, I feel like, okay, if that is our agreement and you are staying home with the kids, then you would get more say than you would. I mean, I'm just being honest. Than you would if
Mm-hmm.
it was the other way around.
Well, both of you, both people, bringing up a child should have equal say. Just because you both created
Totally.
something,
I'm just recognizing my
so,
own.
but,
Mm-hmm.
but no, but your point
Recognizing
is
my
right.
own.
The well, the stereotype
Totally.
is trying to shift, and even though they're trying to go back there, I have no idea why they're trying to go back there. At least from my understanding of history, no, I'm not a history buff or anything,
What's
but what
going
I
on
do,
here with the
yeah, from what I know about history, I don't remember the 50s or early 60s being the ideal time that everybody was hand in hand skipping along and all that. We were still isolated. So, in my opinion, the overturn of Roe V Wade, which is all we're talking about today, I'm not going to get into any other topic, but the overturning of Roe V Wade causes us to separate again. Um,
mm-hmm.
so and to me, we don't need more separation, more divide in this country. Um, and this is one issue that keeps us
Totally.
divided. So, yeah. But back to mention, I
We
want
do
no.
have
Go
lots of
ahead.
separatist language, and that is what creates the issue. It creates isolation. It makes people feel like they're alone.
Hmm.
And I think that's, and he had shared that when he was 19, I think, that he didn't get to process that. He still doesn't really know even like what to do with. He was 19 and he could have had a baby, and especially because he's super off so that he could be rested. And he still thinks every once in a while, but then he feels guilty, like that he doesn't deserve to think about it, or that he doesn't deserve to have kind of compassion for himself around this, because he wasn't the one to have the actual abortion, but also helped them on some level. And so I think this is one of those conversations too, that of just kind of giving men permission.
Yeah. Yeah. Giving them
You
permission
feel
to feel.
happy about it.
Hmm.
Yes, to have feelings, to have thoughts, to
Right.
hey, I I've been thinking about this thing, or I saw that this was turned over, and I didn't feel like I could speak on it, but I have some thoughts, if to share with your partner, or I feel like I need to release some things, or if men don't feel a permission to be able to speak on certain topics anyways, and particularly it's not happening to their body. And so I know a lot of men don't feel like they get to weigh in, even though they've got the big feelings. So that, I think, compounded with regrets. One, regrets over maybe saying, as I was sharing earlier, my husband or his partner at the time when I was 19, encouraged her to have an abortion. And he regrets that now. He feels bad about that as a man that has kids. He feels bad about that now. And so it's like, we're also being able where to bring those feelings. And he's already 45, and this happened 19. This was, all these 20 some odd years ago. But because there wasn't a place, or he didn't process it, or didn't know he was allowed to, really, I think that was it. He didn't know he was allowed to. I think he also used that as punishment for himself, of this depression that could absolutely bring you into, of if you do have other children, and for whatever reason, again, not all abortions are because of, we don't really like each other, or we just had a baby, or oops, whatever. Like, there also are families who are trying, and now there's a medical issue, or there's something else that's going on. And that's a very high in the fertility community, of peoples that are really trying to have babies that are having a hard time. I mean, they're really working at this. So again, depression, feelings, high anxiety, might be injections, there's other family dramas going on. And so now let's add that to whatever else is going on. And where do you bring that, men? And of course you could get depressed. Of course there could be regrets. Of course now you don't feel like there's anywhere to bring it. And so again, my husband, 24, 5, 6 years later, whatever, he could use some processing. He could use some therapy around it. He hasn't released himself from that. I could absolutely see how that would cause depression and cause other strains, just like sicknesses. A lot of times when when a person is put into caretaker, a lot of couples can't recover. Ones that want to be together, ones that want to stay together, a lot of them also can't recover from something like this. If they weren't on the same page. What happens when you're not on the same page? So yes, for everybody, a lot of feelings. Yeah,
it's a tough decision.
Totally.
But it should be a choice for both involved, and we should be acknowledging. I mean, I'm saying a lot of shoulds, which I mean, I'm supposed to, but men have feelings, and men can communicate that. And the only one that seems to be permitted to communicate is anger. But as therapists, we know there's more. The anger is the top part, that's underneath. So
anger stems from hurt, from that sense of justice.
Right. The disappointment, the sadness, the shame, the guilt. So
I think that's a big one to talk about. I think that's a big one to acknowledge. Is shame is the thing, right? Like that seems to be what people kill themselves with, is their shame. And I think that's also, when you said that was immediately one of those ones that, oh yeah, men could also feel shame around this. And again, just the thinking about, they could have that feeling, and then where do they bring that of this might be shameful to their families, to themselves? Do they share this? What happens if people knew? And then you lose the baby, or have to have, again, a medical or whatever's, and like thinking about all of the way of, and the way that humans internalize things that they had nothing to do with. And so men, just as much as women, could blame themselves for their bodies not holding on to the baby, all the ways that women blame themselves for if their bodies spontaneously abort or things like that. Men could
Right.
also be blaming themselves. Men could also be, if I was more understanding, if I didn't put her through so much stress, if I whatever, if I had better sperm, I don't know, right? Like
Mhm.
all the ways that we come up with to take blame for
Mhm.
something instead of being able to just express the feeling in a safe place. Um, One, I think it's having the safe place to express it and knowing
Mhm.
how to express those types of feelings safely. So having a safe space and being able to express safely is is a really big deal. And a lot of people haven't been taught, that
Right.
either. We haven't been taught how to deal with these things, and how to communicate with others about these things. So a little bit of
Right.
grace for everybody for sure. And again, men, there are therapy groups, there are groups, there are, within different circles, whether it is from the fertility perspective of, hey, we were
Mhm.
trying and we're losing, and that this is pain. I mean, that's a whole other journey for folk.
Right.
If it's because it was I was not trying to be with her, and yet I feel sensitive about baby stuff, or yeah, I feel
Mhm.
a way about I contributed to the, maybe you don't maybe you don't give a shit. I don't know. But you're all over the place. You have a thought or a feeling about it. And if you
Yeah.
don't give a shit, you've definitely not been given space to even feel the not giving a shit or why you don't. So, there's, again, I think just around this topic and for men, um, as I'm talking a bit more about it, I think, yeah, there's definitely a lot more of a barrier, I would think,
Mhm.
to weighing in, saying anything, even acknowledging.
Mhm.
I think it's even just being able to go back a little bit more than that, of being able to acknowledge of that these decisions that other men are making, mainly for the women's, but you're going to see that you do anything to the women, the men are going to be affected. And so
Right.
at some point, and is this also going to then be the thing that we've got to wait till more men say something before change happens? That's usually how our society likes to work things, especially on women's issues, is until a man is
Mhm.
affected. We're not going to see change. We're not going to see support. Um,
Mhm.
and so if that's the case, men, I encourage you to speak up. I encourage you, for those of you that have a story, for those of you that feel a connection, for those of you that, know somebody, or again, were involved, then it is taught. And it's not necessarily going in and speaking up at Congress, but even being able to give voice between circles and groups and, buddies, and at wherever, at different places where this can be a conversation, where
Mhm.
it's appropriate, for there to be support, but to give yourself space to be able to bring it up with partners. There's ways to bring it up if you're
Mhm.
not sure. Again, send in a
Mhm.
message. You can send in anonymously. We don't have to say your name for things. But if you're really needing
Mhm.
resources, again, let us know so that we can look them up, because I
Right.
don't know. I don't know on this topic. I don't
Right.
have a lot of resources. And there needs to be. Absolutely.
Yeah, then it's a group of, even if it's anonymous group, that they you
Yeah.
don't have to see them, but they are free to talk.
Yeah.
You know,
Free to identify,
it,
you
yeah,
know,
please, yeah, the permission, give them permission to you know share their feelings,
on their
which
story.
you know,
Story
mhm,
matters, and to
right,
process
right,
that and to be able to speak freely about that without getting a lump in your throat. Here's the biggest thing for any of this stuff, men or women, but again, since we're talking about men, and also knowing there's just not as many spaces for men to speak about this,
mhm,
is the way that we show up today, however positive, however happy, our demeanor, our personality, um, all of this is affected by the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves. And so if you've got a major story, I don't think that's a small story. If
right,
you, man or woman, have had an abortion, but as a man, if there's an abortion in your world, I don't think that's a small story. And I
mhm,
think that's also part of the why there's not more help sought or talked about, is because we would also have to be able to identify what those feelings are. Or a lot of people would say that's not really a big trauma. That's not really a trauma. And so why am I still affected? Right. But it can be a trauma. And so it's just even identifying to what degree did this cause something in your life. And so, again, in the case of my husband, whether you were 19, whether this happened yesterday, years old, is, are you registering it as the upset that it might be for you? Because if you're walking around today carrying shame, carrying regret, resentments, maybe you resent maybe you were the guy that wanted her to keep the baby and she said, not my body. I get to do what I want.
Right.
I'm just saying, I believe that because as a woman, it is my body. I get to do what I want. But if I were a man and on the other situation and I really wanted this baby, maybe I really cared about this person, whatever. And she decided, my body, you don't really get a say. I'd be fucking pissed. I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
But then where do you get to bring that? Who do you get to talk to? If you're me personally, I also wouldn't go off on her. I wouldn't want to go off on her because it is her body and knowing that. But I also have feelings. And so now I don't get to say those. And she's made the decision. And hopelessness. When humans feel helpless, there's a lot of really negative behaviors that affect people until they heal that in unconscious ways. And so to finish what I was going to say is, if for nothing else, if you've had any sort of this experience, you've bumped up against it, you're not even sure if how you are with it or if whatever, just giving yourself that moment to check in to see, is that thing still affecting me today? And if so, what do I need? Right? Do I need to speak it out? Do I need a hug? Do I need forgiveness? Do I feel I need forgiveness? Do I feel I need to hear an apology from that person if there is that situation like what I explained? So these things are going to affect us for the rest of our lives. I also it seems to be a very rare person who is 100% good and fine and totally okay with their whole decision, top to bottom, when they've had an abortion. That's just been my experience and with people that I've seen. And so it seems to be that every single time there is something that we're having to make amends, peace, love ourselves, something. And like I said, one, acknowledging that it was an upset, and it doesn't matter if it's 20 years later, it's still affecting you unless you dealt with it. So again, for those of you that may need it, the permission, even if it happened a long time ago, no matter what side of where you were at, unless you dealt with it, it's still hanging out in some form or fashion. If you can't tell the story without emoting in a really big way, that's a good indicator that it's not processed. So again, just giving that permission, giving yourself that moment just to even check in. We're so good at dissociating and to numbing out and not checking in on identifying what the issue is so that it can be helped or soothed or given what it needs.
Well, back to the permission, it's not just the person giving themselves permission, it's society giving them permission too.
Absolutely.
I think part of the shame that we feel about anything is society telling us over and over and over again what behavior is shameful. And part of behavior that is shameful consistently is talking about things that you're not supposed to talk about. So you're not supposed to talk about that you had an abortion.
Totally.
Or somebody you
openly. Otherwise, shame on you. Right? Shame on you for having one, and shame on you for being bold and brazen enough to talk about it. Right?
Right. Yeah. How dare you do that? I mean, there's a bunch of this waving, one finger waving going on. How did it become one finger anyway? But anyway, so I mean, it's that uh,
Conditioning,
continuation,
programming, all
right.
of it,
That
all of it.
programming is constantly in there, and fighting that is part of the journey too, because you have to understand, wait a minute, is this me thinking that way, or is this society jamming
Yes.
their thoughts into me? So,
And yes, and just you saying that, I thought of another version of man that I know
mm,
that has gone through this. And it's the version of man that, I want to say this in the most, like, in the way that it's conveying it without it getting misconstrued in the way that we do things with men, of the men that really, really want babies, the men that even maybe would love, appreciate, thinks it's miraculous, the whole the birthing
mm,
process. There are men, and I also know them. I just thought of one. Him in this abortion situation, he cried. He cried.
mm,
He cried for months. He really, really, really wanted to be a dad. Really
mm,
wanted to be a dad.
mm,
And he was distraught. Uh,
mm, right,
do you recover? And especially if
right,
you're in a relationship or committed relationship, if you're in a marriage, or if you're in a committed relationship,
mm,
um, even if you're not, and you really, really want that, you know what I mean? Like that. And so that coming, and that then not from a shame place, heartbroken. That
mm,
and that's also something that our culture and our society says,
right,
you don't get to feel that.
right,
She went through, you don't get to feel that. She had to make the decision. And again,
right,
if I put myself in those shoes, and if I was the man and really, really wanted and really cared about this person, and maybe they didn't feel the same way, there's a whole bunch of reasons on why, and all of that stuff that could happen.
mm,
Again, I'd be
yeah,
absolutely pissed, but really it would be because I was heartbroken and feeling helpless. And I hate feeling helpless. There's no matter
right,
what I say, I don't matter. My voice
right,
doesn't matter. My opinion, my desire doesn't matter. And so much so, I don't get to a future that I was really looking forward to. I don't get to have
mm, right,
that.
and that,
That's
yes,
that's heavy. That's heavy.
that,
And you deserve a
it's
place,
all right. It is
you know,
happy, and it's disappointing once again that we
all of it.
reinforce that when that person, is mourning that loss, he can't freely say to people, I wish that didn't happen, and have the support of saying the statement. And so
Mhm.
you're right, the automatic response is, excuse me? What do you mean you feel upset?
Yes, right?
You
Like,
know, and that's
you
just
don't get to feel upset in this, like you don't
right,
even have the
right,
parts. So
right,
yeah,
right.
we do all
Yeah,
kind of stuff about it.
right, and, so that's a rule in general that we don't give people that, men in particular, that permission to be, mourning,
But then we're going to shame the
to
shame, because
right,
those men that tend to be a bit more, whether we want to call them a bit more sensitive, whether we want to call them a bit more in touch, they're going to get called names for feeling the feels. And if they
right,
identify, because then you're going to get called
right,
sissy, or then you could get called all these other, things that then, of course, in our society, if it's an effeminate, if it's anything that's, not then the masculine, then it's invalidating those men's feelings because they're not masculine enough, but the masculine ones don't identify their feelings, or only identify the angry one. You know what I mean? Like it's
mhm,
such a gross thing that we've created for men on these certain
yes,
topics, of where there is no safe place or healthy version of the response allowed in our
mhm,
society. Because again, it's
right,
don't let you be that more sensitive guy who's articulate with his feelings, because even if you are the machoist of men, unless people see your body shape and whether or not you've got all these muscles all over the place, that's the only time you're allowed to have emotions other than anger, is if you can back them up with muscles. What if you're not that
Mm-hmm.
guy? What if you're not that
Mm-hmm.
guy? You have no desire to be that guy. You will never be that guy. Again,
Right.
no space. No space. You don't get to feel that.
Right.
You're not man enough to even weigh in on the conversation. You see how we do this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, my heart goes out to our men on a lot of
Right.
topics when feelings are involved.
Right.
But also, really, really, the more that we're talking about this, just being able to have compassion and empathy. From my perspective, I've had some very hard line, especially at different ages and when I was younger. And again, having had,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my termination whenever I was younger, um, I've grown since then. I've changed
Yeah.
my mind. Uh, and yet I had some really hard line thoughts and ideas at different points along the way of when I was making those decisions. And I've grown in a different person. I also might then have shame, guilt, or whatever's even again about my own decisions. So
Mm-hmm.
my heart really goes out to the guys. And again, no matter what kind of guy you are, masculine, femme, everything in between, because it's all a spectrum, right? Like male and feminine, it's all a spectrum. um,
Right.
is no matter where you're at on it, it's giving yourself safe spaces to be able to
Mm-hmm.
express. And that is each individual's responsibility, regardless of what Roe v. Wade and the government and all of the ways that they want to try to insert themselves into family units. They have no business there. And so it's not part of their conversation. But again, it's you seeking out the safe space. Is that therapy? Is
Mm-hmm.
that a guys group? Is that a whatever that looks like for you, to express these, so that we're not also living out these unconscious stories. So
Right.
we're not living out the shame of this, so that we don't have weird attachments every time we see babies or pregnant people, or that the word and the topic comes up, that we're not getting just all triggered and activated and all just, of take care of ourselves. Of everybody has permission to take care of themselves, and we need to.
Right.
We need to.
And yeah, I agree. And we need to allow everybody to have a voice. As long as it's, helping things move forward and not backward. I mean, I understand that we um, sometimes feel that if only things were the way they used to be. But like I said earlier, I'm not a history buff. But
We
what I
wait long
do
enough, it's
know about,
going backwards.
yeah,
We're seeing the
right,
handmaid's
right,
tale in certain
right,
states
yeah.
already. So
I mean, what I do know about history is it repeats itself. I
yeah,
do know that.
yes, it does. And we're
So,
doing it. We're doing a
yeah,
fine job of
right,
it, aren't we? Literally going
right,
backwards.
right. Until the lessons learned, so you keep repeating. But we have the ability as a human species. That brain is powerful. I don't care what technology is doing. I don't care about the wonderful AI thing going on. What the brain still has the ability to adjust when needed,
Adapt.
when we give it permission. So let's
Yep.
give it
Yeah.
permission. You know, let's
Yes.
so
I
you know.
agree. This has been again
Mhm,
another kind of heated bunch of feels around this. Lots of ideas,
mhm,
lots of opinion, lots of stuff,
mhm.
lots of
Right,
big feelings around this topic. I appreciate how we went a bit more this time into talking about Roe versus Wade, where we didn't really talk so much about the government and the entity of things, and men's roles in those things. Although there is a role, of course, for men and to have a voice and
mhm,
to be advocates and to share your stories, because the more you do share your stories, men, you are the ones
right,
making the change until you're not. So that's on
and
one point, but then
yeah,
also just giving the voice, having a
right,
space. to be able to say what you need to say so that we can all be healthier as individuals out here in the
right,
world, which then means we're going to get along better if we are healthier and not just looking out for the individual, because that is
mhm,
the separatism. That is what
right,
the government, that is what these things are trying to do, is to create more separation. And when we
right.
create more separation between the sexes, between races and
Well,
groups,
yeah,
between people
religions,
for
yeah,
whatever, the
hmm,
more we create separation, the more ego or I centered, individual centered that we become, where then we lose empathy and compassion for our neighbors. We're literally taught to then that it's better to be an isolated individual as an island. That is not what humans are. We are social creatures. We absolutely require, it is not a weakness, we require other people for us to be able to survive in our lives. And so that does absolutely mean we need to tend to these. We need to care for these. We need to create space. We need to have safety and being able to express these things, and to give voice so that, again, the community, the unity, community is common unity. Humans, we're all humans just trying to
yeah,
survive out here. We don't need one more thing saying, oh, man over there, woman over there. So since you're separate, man has no idea and no compassion for woman, and that
right,
she's giving birth and babe. You know what I'm saying? So it's, if
yeah,
everybody can take care of themselves, we can acknowledge our own needs, because that's exactly what this is. If we can acknowledge our own needs, give
hmm,
ourselves that thing, we're going to be healthier individuals. And if each individual takes responsibility for themselves, then as a community, we would all rise, because everybody would just be minding their own business and just taking care of themselves. And if you do that, you're going to be happy, and you're not going to be trying to impress yourself on other people, and they're going to be happy, and everyone's responsible for their own happiness and joy. I feel like that's where real change also gets to happen, besides from the political places, but we have to acknowledge and know what we're dealing with first and give voice.
yeah, and make sure you give a voice based on that it benefits not just you but others.
Yes,
It quit
elevates
thinking
the
about
conversation.
what then, but well, also I have to talk about that this year our hosted conference is masculinity matters, and
Masculinity Matters is our conference this
it's,
year, isn't it? I was literally
yes,
just about to start talking about details.
yeah, yeah, and we have it's a 3 day conference this year. There's 9 speakers, 6 of them are men, 3 women, and it's all topics on sexuality and mental health. Because men are important, which is why we're talking about, men's voice on abortion. We want them to know that their feelings matter, their thoughts matter, and that's why we're doing this conference. So
For
get your
sure.
ticket.
Thanks.
Well, this is, yeah, I know. Well, all the topics are on the website, all 9 of them. One is
On
about,
www.kissandtellmagazine.com. All the topics are listed
or,
there. Okay, could you tell us a
yes,
couple though? Yeah.
yeah, or you can go to masculinitymattersconference.com too, either one. This
MasculinityMattersConference.com.
conference,
Oh yeah, okay. And
yeah,
we've got that on the ticker. Beautiful.
yes. And so one topic is Marty Klein, who was at the
Marty's
literacy
fabulous.
conference. Yes, he said talking about how porn affects male sexuality, how that impacts it.
How porn affects
One
male
thing,
sexuality. Yes,
yes,
yes. One,
Lily
and one thing I want to say
mentioned,
about
go
Marty is
ahead.
his style. Um, he's a very, this is just of course my opinion and how I
Mhm,
see him or view him, or how I take him, again, to answer the question in the way that I was asking it. He
mhm,
has a very soothing, well balanced kind of a voice.
mhm,
It's not an excitable, it's, and not meaning that there's not excitement or fluctuation. It's not an
mhm,
I'm kind of loud. I've got an edgier voice. My
mhm.
energy tends to be a little bit more like, ah. You can
Yeah.
hear that usually in my voice. It's not that. It's,
Mhm,
he sounds and feels very grounded. He speaks at a at a kind of a regular cadence, a wealth of information, lots of background on all of this. And so for those that might relate to him, that even if you don't think that you're fully interested, let's say in porn, for example, he also, the way he presents information, just whether you're here for CEUs or if you're the man that's listening, that's like, hey, I think I might want to hear about that. He provides so many freaking resources. It's ridiculous. And then even he does slideshows a lot of times. There's tons of information in the slideshow itself that he doesn't ever get to. And so even just from a resource, a hearing somebody talk about this, he's as a woman, he's also really lovely to listen to on a whole bunch of topics. And again, it's really easy, feels very non-judgmental. And so just want to give a bit of a vibe, and that's just one of the speakers, right? For if you're thinking, is this for me, or what kind of people are on there, or what are they talking about? Go look on the site, have a look, interact now. Starts, if you see a topic that you're super interested in, or that you think is super crap, or you've got a really big perspective, you've got questions, maybe you see something in there, you're like, finally, somebody's talking about it. I have questions. You can send those in anonymously. We could also send those on to the speakers. Lots that we could do. And again, men, we want to hear from you. We're trying to create this platform, this space, for you to be able to speak up. And as you see, we're not the elephant in the room. It's a couple of women talking about this and that have created this platform. So we really, we have lots of men, on our staff as writers or whatever, but you're the subscriber. So we really want to hear from you. We really want to know, what does a safe platform, what does an exciting platform or a useful platform look like for you, especially on some of these topics that, maybe we don't get to talk about so much. Dr. Jenny, anything else that we want to share? Our masculinity conference, then we have the website that's on the ticker. When is that? If you'll share that date again with us.
Yeah, November 7th, 8th, and 9th.
November 7th, 8th, and 9th.
11 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Every talk will be 45 minutes long, with 15 minutes allowed for questions. And then the last hour is all three speakers intermingling with your questions. So any questions you have, you send it in and they answer them. So,
yes. Yeah. Or whether you're joining at that moment, right? Then you get to you can put your chat. Yeah, you're going to put your questions in the chat or raise your hand or whatever's and what have you. How much is? I saw it says tickets. So this is a paid event. How much are the tickets? Is there early bird? What do we got going on there?
Yeah. Well, right now the 300 for professionals and the 12 CEs. It's 200 for the general public. It's 100 for college students.
Oh, so, fabulous. I love that.
And so you have 3 days and you have about 15 hours of talking. So it's a fair price because all of them are professionals in the field.
Oh, for sure.
This is their expertise. You wouldn't pay that price for any one home alone for an hour. So, yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Is being able to speak to, again, all these people are professionals. Many of them are therapists, are professors, are teaching somewhere, are have programs, are doing the work in the field. And some of these, are more than 300 an hour for one person. For just an hour. So the fact that you're getting 15 hours of this, it's interactive, it's tailored to what you want to hear. You're getting 9 different speakers. You're getting your Q&A, really and replay. So then, and you're getting the videos, the recordings, so that you get to go back to them. But that's in November. Our Masculinity Matters. We've got giving a little bit of those updates. And so thanking everybody who's also then been giving their input, our writers, thanking our writers. Anyone, if you're interested in becoming a writer or joining us in KNT, submit an email to us. Let us know. We're always looking for new writers or other people that may want to become a part of our directory that's coming out here in the very next upcoming soon. Hopefully this month. Our directory will be coming out. So if you're a professional, again, that is the $300, but you also get your CEs that we all have to do every year. So that knocks that out. And then again, 200 for everybody else. Wonderful conference. Send in your messages. And thank you so much
Yeah.
for your involvement with us as always and subscribing. So make sure that you go to Kiss and Tell magazine and that you click the bell, hit the notifications, our RSS feed, so that you know whenever we get new content. Same thing in all of our socials. Kiss and Tell magazine, we're putting more stuff out. The podcast is going to be, spliced and mixed down video wise and unapologetic, unfiltered. Thank you for your opinions. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Jenny, is there anything else that you want to say as we leave for another day?
No, thank you again for joining.
We'll see you soon. Keep kissing and we'll keep telling.
Thank you.